And let's say hello and good morning to Ron Friedman, I-24 News editor. What do you have for us today for our press review?
Good morning. We're going to do a roundup of the press from Israel and from around the world, and we begin with the front pages of the Israeli media. And as usual, we start with the most widely read daily, that's Israel Hayom. And basically the front page of that paper, they're leading with big news about strikes. It's that time of the year, it's summer, heading into the new school year, and already we're just talking about strikes in the Israeli school system, the education system, as well as a strike that actually did begin today in the hospitals. In both cases, we're talking about budgets being passed not to the liking of the professionals in those industries, and the people are going on strike. So that's the top of the page. Front and center, we have an Olympic story.
Israel's pride and joy.
Yeah, but so we have the pride and joy on one hand. We have Liran Jerbi, who won Israel's only bronze or only medal so far of the games. But at the same time, another Israeli judoka who didn't manage to win a medal. So that's the disappointment side of that story. Another interesting story I'm going to draw your attention to. Is this headline about discrimination in Israel. There was an ad, a job placement ad that came out yesterday in which it was said specifically women of Ethiopian descent need not apply. It was said even sharper than that. It says, I don't want Ethiopian women. Right. So that created a huge backlash, some protests, and obviously politicians weighing in on that. That's going to be another story to follow.
Do we know if that was forced down, that ad?
The ad was forced down, and the business owner came under heavy criticism. But it's just another example of that discrimination and racism that's present in Israeli society, and it's showing its head more and more often. Moving on to
Yediot.
Yes, let's go Yediot Achronot, the second most wide-read daily in Israel, and they're leading with an Olympic story, talking about Michael Phelps. The headline reads, "A world of his own," and as you can see, a cute photo of Phelps in a swimming pool superimposed over the globe. So that's the top story there. Again, we're referencing the Ethiopian discrimination. Moving on to Haaretz. We have a story on judo. We have a story, another interesting story about the strikes, talking about how overnight the doctors' union failed to reach agreements and are going on strike today. But another interesting story just on the edge there, we're talking about a Jewish affairs, a Jewish world story. The headline reads, "In a reversal, state to build mikvahs for non-Orthodox." This is a story we've been following for a while.
Which is a very big breakthrough.
It is a breakthrough. Basically, that's just to put it in broad strokes. There was a request by non-Orthodox streams of Judaism, so Reform, Progressive, to allow them to use ritual bathing houses, which is part of the practicing Jewish religion, and the state, which is dominated by Orthodox streams of Judaism, rejected that initially. Now they're reversing that to the merriment of many.
Indeed, because it's being required by those getting married. Let's move on.
Yeah, next up we move to Syria, and we discussed this briefly just now, and I'm glad we have Anna with us in the studio. So Russia announces daily ceasefires in Aleppo. So we're talking about a 3-hour a day window of opportunity for aid convoys, much needed aid convoys to come in. We have a brief report about the humanitarian situation in Aleppo, and then we'll move on.
The mercury hasn't dropped below a sweltering 96 degrees, and 2 million people of Syria's second largest city have been without water for 4 days.
East or west, and the suburbs of Aleppo, where we have up to 2 million people who may be cut off from water and electricity. It's critical. As we heard, temperatures are very high, and with such a density of people, the health risks are enormous.
Fighting has been raging here for weeks after a rebel push to break a 3-week siege on territory held by the Syrian government. But now the rebels say they're struggling to cling on to those areas they captured. The regime and its allies have escalated their offensive to regain lost ground. Their roaring warplanes pummeling places like the residential neighborhood of Al-Sukari.
في كهرباء فوق لسه بقصفنا في البراميل.
2 barrels, one here and one there. This is a civilian area. There are no Free Syrian Army soldiers here. This is a school which has been empty for 4 or 5 months. We are living here under God's protection, without water, without electricity, and despite that, they still target us with barrels and rockets. Planes fired towards us as we were trying to save people. And here's another plane. Look, it's flying overhead.
One rebel commander recalls what he found when he led the fight to break the siege on the Ramusa neighborhood, northeast of the city.
We found civilians, children, women and young people that the regime used as human shields. They were used to prevent us from approaching. But thank God, not a single one of them was injured. We secured the access roads yesterday night, and we are taking these women and children out of the area.
It's led to a new round of displacement in western Aleppo. 25,000 people have already arrived, and an additional 10,000 registered just this morning. If the fighting, like the heat, continues to intensify and infrastructure will not be repaired, civilians will be at greater risk than ever.
And Ron, our final headline for this morning.
So we were just talking about Putin, the peacemaker, or at least the bringer of calm to Aleppo. And we move on to another headline from Bloomberg News, and this is kind of a shift in the opposite direction. Putin accuses Ukraine of terror as Crimea tensions escalate. Remember that conflict? We were covering it pretty intensively.
I remember it, but for some reason, no one seems to remember it today.
Right. It kind of fell off the radar, but here it is again. There was a firefight on the border there. Putin is accusing Kiev special forces of breaching the border and killing 2 Russian soldiers there. Also, more and more talk about things heating up in Ukraine itself, proper between pro-Russian separatists and Ukrainian nationals. So that's another story we're going to be keeping
is
on.
Going on a fence.
Right.
Thanks, Ron Friedman. You'll be staying with us. And coming up next, we'll wrap up day 5 of the 2016 Olympic Games in Rio. But first, the news.